That was transfer deadline day, but could there still be a twist? Because
we are delighted to announce the loan signing of goalkeeper Jordan Smith from Nottingham Forest for the remainder of the 2022-23 Sky Bet Championship season.
Stefan Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
I'm on the wine.
Oh. He's on the wine. We're back home at the John Smiths, but it's like your parents are getting divorced. It's pretty grim, isn't it? But we'll try and make it a bit more fun for you all. It's the warm-up episode 99. It's Brady and Tom. We're previewing the QPR game, and we're joined by Matt Shaw. Matt, how does it feel to do a podcast in 2023? It must be a new experience for you, right?
Not thrilled about it, to be honest, Brady. It's town are pretty shit, to be honest, are they? So.
They are. Tom, do you want to, hello, by the way, do you want to be a cheeky sod like myself and tease Matt at all?
No, Brady, come on. It's like being in Takes That Chance podcast royalty, isn't it, whenever Matt's involved. So it's always a privileged. Started this one well. Let's keep going.
Oh, you're such a kiss off.
I have no idea what that means, though.
This has gone well. You can tell we're a bit rusty. To be honest, we're not sure we want to preview this game because we'll talk briefly about the Coventry game, but it made me feel really flat. Tom, it was disappointing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was rubbish. I think I've been reasonably positive the last few weeks when I think back to previous podcasts, but I think that was one of the first games where I've actually thought, what were they doing? I get playing tight, right? I totally get that. Playing tight, making it compact, but there were so many instances from Saturday where we literally had it seemed like 10 players in the box and no one was doing anything outside of it, and Coventry had so much time to kind of pick where they wanted to go and stuff, and it really frustrated me. I think that's the first time I've been a bit annoyed by a performance under Fotheringham, to be honest, because I kind of get what situation we're in, and I know you've got to build from defence, but yeah, it wasn't good. It was not good at all.
And Matt, we normally get to listen to you guys talk about the defeats, as it seems to be at the moment. Can't talk about wins to help us, feel a bit better about it. So I know you didn't get a chance to do a Coventry pod, so why don't you make us all feel a little bit better and get it out of your system about how rubbish Town are?
Oh, do you know what? I wish I was as patient as Tom to say that was the only game under Mark Fotheringham that is felt a bit disillusioned. I thought it was absolutely shit, I'll be honest. Really, really shit. It was 90 minutes of defend the box with a 5-4-1, 11 men behind the ball with absolutely no intention of getting past the halfway line. It was crap. It was really, really crap. And I can't stress that enough, especially when, you're coming up against a team that's not 1 in 6. Issues. Coventry were no great shakes at all in this game. And we've just sat on the edge of our box and done absolutely nothing. He's picked 2 inside forwards out wide. Neither of them are going to carry the ball up the pitch and carry the team up the pitch. He's picked 2 wing backs who can't get past halfway line. It's a flat back 5. Scott High, bless him, in midfield. He's not really going to do an awful lot with absolutely zero movement around him. Same with Jonathan Hogg, who we understand he's there for his leadership qualities and not his, not so much his second ball winning ability and charging around and closing people down like he used to do 4 or 5 years ago. There was absolutely nothing. The game showed me nothing. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be as annoyed about that game if Mark Fotheringham had come out at the end and actually tried to paint this off as a good result. He keeps telling us every week Huddersfield Town fans are the best in the league. He's not blinding me with kindness because you can't tell us we're the best fans in the league and then bullshit us by telling us how good a performance it was. It wasn't. It was a really, really poor performance. And I understand he has to be partially... You can tell why we've not done a podcast for ages, isn't it? All the rage is coming out now. But you can tell... you can tell why... you can essentially tell why... or understand why he has to be positive at the end of the game. But don't lie to us. You can say that we're not... We can say that we're great. But we can see through... I can see through, him saying that that's a really good performance and we're hunting Coventry down. We achieved absolutely nothing in that game and created absolutely nothing. And part of that was due to the setup that he put in terms of, the 10 men behind the ball approach. And even at 2-0 down, he's taking a striker off for a strike and we're still 10 men behind the ball on the edge of our own box, achieving nothing. I thought it was a really abysmal performance, and the people that went deserved a lot better, if I'm honest. And we cannot afford to play like that from now till the end of the season because games are running out, really running out and running out quickly. And Huddersfield Town is still in the bottom three. We're lucky that there seems to be a mini group of 6 who are in the relegation zone, but I'm sure we'll come on to the transfer window. I won't derail you, but looking at what we've done in the transfer window, we have to do more in games to actually try and win it rather than just try and stay in it.
Mm.
Yeah, well said.
Is that what you expected? Is that what you wanted, Brady?
I did want that. Yeah, no, because look at you, Matt. You've actually got insight into why it didn't work, and me and Tom just say it's crap. But
I just wanted to say it was crap and move on, if I'm honest.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because that's my job to say it was crap and move on. But it was crap. Let's move on shortly. But I think why I felt like so deflated about that is the manner of the performance. Like you say, I understand we've got to be defensively solid, but I genuinely think if Town went out to win that and lost 2-0, and had a few shots that actually tried, it's a bit like that. To be honest, it was like that game in the first season under Carlos where it was Bristol City where we lost 2-1, but we absolutely peppered them. If we'd have done something like that, I think. Everyone
had said, you know what, we've paid 30 quid to watch this and 50 quid trains or whatever. It's been worth our time, But to play like that and then to try and tell everyone that we played well afterwards is just absolute nonsense. You can't lie to Huddersfield Town fans. We're not stupid.
I think for me, I think if you got a 0-0 off that performance, you'd be like, all right. But the way the goals were conceded just wound me up the most because you had like 4 Town players round each player whilst they were having the shot, and that's what annoyed me. I know he's trying to go out there and keep it tight, keep it compact, but there was that moment as well near the end where Hoggy, it was just really slack. Hoggy give it away. Luckily, ended up being a foul in our box, kind of things like that. Just really slack stuff. But I don't know, where do you go from here? That's the most frustrating thing. And at the moment, I can't really see much improvement.
Yeah, well, to be honest, like to quote Neil Wayne from back in the day, it feels a bit at the moment like it's one and done. Like if the other team scored, that's it. However, let's bring some positivity because we're all feeling negative. Let's talk about an incredible transfer window, or judging on some of the Twitter comments, a terrible window. But let's talk about it because it's time for the transfer window roundup.
Sources in Paris are telling me very strong language. Some of it I can't actually use, but they're saying it was an absolute shambles.
It is the transfer window roundup.
Okay, it's slam shut. It's closed. No more deals unless you get a loan deal through for a Nottingham Forest's 4th choice keeper. Let's look at who came in. So the ins for Town. So I'm going to talk about the ins. I'm going to talk about the recalls. I'm going to talk about who's gone out, and then I'll throw to you guys and get your opinion. So in the door, Anthony Knockaert, Florian Kambiri, Jordan Smith, Joseph Hungbo, Martin Waghorn, Matt Loughton, and Thomas Vlakic, I think. I should probably know that. Vastlik, there you go. Recalls, Scott High, hashtag Horn for High, Jacob Chapman, Romani Edmonds-Green, Jaheim Headley, Josh Karoma, Kean Harrett, Carl Hudlin, Rolando Aarons, Tom's favourite player, Matt's favourite player, Kieran Phillips, although he does have an injury, and outs. The most notable one, which I'm sure I'd be interested to get Matt's opinion on this, Sorba Thomas, on loan to Blackburn. Luke Mbete had his loan spell ended and joined Bolton. Aaron Rose gone to Stockport County on loan. Ryan Schofield has been recalled from Hibernian but gone back out to Crawley Town on loan. Big John Russell has gone to Barnsley on a permanent. Kane Kessler-Hayden's been recalled. Bellingambi's gone on loan to Salford City. And Laura Kane has gone to Dundee United. And finally, Josh Osterfield has been loaned to Morecambe. So quite a few in terms of outs B team players, really. Matt, I'll come to you.
Kane Kessler-Hayden as well. Brady's gone.
That was in my list. But thank you.
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Yeah, it's good to know you listen, Tom. After all these,
I
we're
was
on episode 99, and you're not even listening to me. Shocking.
What's your name again?
Matt, I'll come to you because I think you were listening like a good boy. What are your thoughts in terms of the ins? Because I know we've had a bit of back and forth in the podcast
Jesus
WhatsApp
Christ,
group.
Brady, set me up here.
I have. Yeah, you're not feeling great about this, are you?
I don't think I'm ever going to get asked on with what I'm about to say with some of the responses, but I think if you roll back to the start of the window, I think despite Mark Fotheringham saying we would use the World Cup break to work on attacking structures, we came back from that break in this 5-4-1 shape. No issue. I've got no issue with that if you can get forward and make an imprint in the opposition's box. However, first up, Sheffield United away, and we hit our lowest XG of the season with one shot on target. That's just sort of, they're decent, so we'll chalk that one off. Then we play Watford at home, who've proven to be incredibly shaky since. We lose 2-0, 2 shots on target. XG skewed a little bit by Radoni and Rhodes missing a few chances at the end when Watford had slackened off. It was obvious that all season we needed a good attacker. Either a striker with pace or one that can stretch defences, score goals. Carlan Grant type, if you like. If you can't get a striker, someone who can play wide and come in and weigh in. I don't think the win at Preston changed anything, to be honest. It was a pretty poor performance up until Diarra forced an error. And we beat a very poor Rotherham team 2-0 in a fairly decent showing, to be honest. But in both games, we've only had 3 shots on target again. Against Rotherham, despite how bad they were. It's not amazing. But we won the game, so you can't complain. Both games we had an XG of under 1. Both games shouldn't really have papered over the cracks. But when you look at the squad, we lacked a good left back. Ben Jackson showed up really well at wing back and left midfield, but defensively he's not the best, So I don't think he can quite defend well enough at this level if you move to a back 4. But he got bombed out by Fotheringham anyway. So we needed a midfielder because we've never had a proper passer of a ball at number 8 since Aaron Moy left. And Lewis O'Brien, I honestly think Lewis O'Brien is so underrated with Huddersfield fans, because you look at his dribbles per game and we weren't the best passing side under Carlos Corberán, but we got from the first third to the final third mostly by Lewis O'Brien dribbling the length of the field, and we missed that. So we've got nobody who can help us transition from the first to the second to the third stage. So I thought we pretty much needed that. And maybe a winger with pace on the other side from Sorba Thomas. And I think if we'd have gone out and got that, I think everyone would have said, "Oh yeah, that's an amazing window." But in comes Canberra. As I said, we needed goals or pace. He offers neither. 9 goals in 77 games in the SPL in Switzerland and League One. He's been laughed out of Sheffield, but he's mates with Mark Fotheringham, so he's in. And he shut me up, didn't he, when he scored on his debut in the cup? But then missed it. Another bloke that's way past his best. 2 goals in 42 games for Coventry. 7 in 74 if you go back another season. Similar record to Canberra. Add them together, and you've got 16 goals in 151 games. That's about a goal every 9.5 games. So if we play one of them for the remaining 19 games, based on that data, that's likely to yield 2 goals. Okay, so football, it could be massive, those 2 goals, who knows? But okay, football's not basic maths, is it?
No.
Oh.
Both of these players have hit periods of form before. They're both, as Dave Hartrick said, streaky. So I guess you've got Rhodes, you've got Ward, you've got Waghorn, you've got Canberra, and you need just one of them to be in a purple patch at a time, don't you? So, maybe we could get fortunate from there. And I'd absolutely love one of them to rip it up and, shove that down my throat and prove me wrong. I'd love nothing more. But I look at that and I just think that's a massive roll of the dice. It's a massive gamble when we needed something a bit more guaranteed. Nothing against the 2 players, really. It's just, it doesn't scream goal scorer, which is what we needed. When I say over Christmas, we won both games against Preston and Rotherham, neither particularly sparkling, you would say. We were able to get out from that defensive shape and at least post the odd counter. Who was key to that, and who was probably the best player over those 2 games, would you say, Brady, Tom? Who scored 1 and assisted 1 in that? Kane Kessler Hayden. Oh, you're looking blank, so I'll help you out. Kane Kessler Hayden. He scored the winner at Preston, assist against Rotherham, both times getting forward from the right-hand side. He started okay against Stoke, didn't he? Back in his first game. Against Norwich, he came on and I think he assisted one, didn't he, for I think maybe Pat Jones it was. Then he's had a bad dip and he's come back and he's looked pretty decent. But he's been sent back because we've got Matt Lowton. Matt Lowton is okay, but in a 5-4-1, he needs an oxygen tank to get up and down at the minute. You know, he's not crossing the halfway line. And I feel bad for saying that because he's obviously not going to be match fixed. He's not played for ages, but sending back a player with genuine pace and who was just starting to come into his own for someone to play 5-4-1 when he can't cross the halfway line just seemed like the joined up thinking just doesn't seem there for me. And I'm sure Matt Lowton will be decent once he's had, got some games under his belt and stuff. And if we play a back four, I think then he'll probably look to be a half decent signing. But in the current structure, I'm not really seeing it, if I'm honest with you. Joseph Hungbo, I don't mind at all. I think that's a really interesting one. It's a young, hungry player with a bit of pace and a point to prove. He's not an electric signing on the face of it, if you like, to get everyone excited. But I think it could potentially be a clever one, that. And I think if I had to put a couple of pounds on who would be the best signing of the lot, I've probably got a feeling he might do well. It's just a young player with a point to prove. Anthony Knockaert looks like a brilliant replacement for Tino because they're both injured. He's come in. He's not done back-to-back 90 minutes for 2 years. He's done it twice this season. It's another massive risk, another big roll of the dice. He's not the same player he was at Brighton. Barely even half the player, but I understand what they may be trying to do there. That they're probably looking at him and going, do you know what? If we can bring him on from the bench for 20 minutes, remember, if you cast your mind back to Hull, Brahima Diarra comes on against Hull when we're 1-0 up and he loses the ball, doesn't he, in the middle area of the field, and Hull retain it, recycle it, the long ball comes forward and Hull score. Yeah. In that situation, Anthony Knockaert uses his experience and he pushes you into the corner and further up the field. So I understand there are probably times, but we needed really sort of a 90-minute game changer, and I don't see him as that. But if he comes off the bench and changes a game or changes 2, 3, 4 games this season into our favour, then you could probably say, okay, fair enough, that's a success. It's a massive gamble, but if he does that, it's a success. And then the goalkeeper, I think this is just bad luck, isn't it? Really bad luck on the face of it. With Lee Nichols getting injured, it was innocuous. It was a back pass, wasn't it? That is slid for his shoulder, and he's out for 6 months. It's just our luck this season. We've honestly had absolutely rotten luck, and Lee Nichols is a massive player for us, and it's taken us 31 days almost, hasn't it, to find a replacement for him. And without giving much inside information away, we've almost gone through 10 keepers to find Tomasz Vaclik, and we've been able to get Vaclik because Olympiacos have owed us money for Pippa, in terms of the transfer with him going to Ludogorets. So there's been a deal to be done there, and we've obviously had to do a deal with the devil, haven't we, to get him and Jordan Smith. And Jordan Smith, I see absolutely no point in the signing unless Tomasz Vaclik, as rumoured, has dodgy shoulders. And it's kind of very Huddersfield Town, isn't it, to sign a goalkeeper with an injured shoulder to replace a goalkeeper with an injured shoulder. It's, but I have to say, if Vaclik's fit, that's an incredible signing. It really is. If he's fully fit and he can play from now to the end of the season. I just don't see the point of Jordan Smith with his 3 games in 3 years. And that, if you look at that thing on Twitter with his best of mistakes compilations, and even in the thing afterwards, Matt Fotheringham saying he's going to be third choice. I just think, what's the point when you need a left back, you need an 8, you still haven't got a decent striker? It baffles me. So that, like I said, the joined up thinking just isn't there for me. Go on, Tom. Sorry, I've talked for ages.
So we brought him in on loan. How many loans are you allowed to have? Like, because I know are you allowed to have 5 in your starting squad?
You can have 5 in your matchday squad. Yeah,
7, isn't it?
Yeah,
7.
You have 5 in your matchday squad. And all the while we've managed to, and all the while we've been doing these deals, we've managed to make ourselves weaker in the creativity department by loaning out the 7th most creative player in the league. And I'm sorry, if you're telling me Sorba Thomas is only creative because of his free kicks, then Lee Nichols only won the player of the season last year because he's got arms. It's a stupid argument. Sorba Thomas was emphatically our most creative player. And at the end of the day, your eyes lie, the stats don't lie. You can obviously abuse them to however you want, but Sorba Thomas, whether it was a corner, whether it was a free kick, whether it was an open play, was still creating key passes and key chances. Yes, he's obviously not the personality-wise. He's obviously come back from the World Cup with a bit of a chip on his shoulder and maybe made things difficult. But that's down to man management again. And, you have to look at Mark Fotheringham and say, well, it's down to you to manage this player and keep him in line rather than bombing out the only guy who's actually going to create something. And, people are saying Ben Jackson does take a decent corner. Jack Radonis is okay, but Sorba Thomas's, when they're decent, are bang on the money, and they're not comparable.
Seems ridiculous to me that, again, with that, we don't know anything going on, but we talked about it last week. It seems like a falling out, but it just seems ridiculous to me. We brought in all these strikers who you touched on earlier, like Streaky got purple patches. Well, I think we'd improve those chances if we had the person who's mint at set pieces and can put crosses bang on the money sometimes. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom...
The final thing, Brady, there is if, we're going about Sorba Thomas's open stats creation, but no one's open stats creation is going to be any decent if you put one attacker in the box against 4 defenders for the last 2 years. It's just a lot of it's circumstantial. And I understand if Sorba Thomas is making things very difficult at the training ground, I understand, or his agent's making things very difficult. Then I understand the temptation to get him out and the temptation to bring in a loan fee. But I can't see that it's been used anywhere either. And I think that underpins everything in the transfer window is that Huddersfield Town have had zero money to spend. And they've tried to tell us, haven't they, in so many ways, we've got to be creative. We've got to... Mark Fotheringham, to be honest, has just gone, listen, we're skint pretty much, hasn't he, in every press conference. And, the reason why we've tried to get 10 all these goalkeepers is because we're literally the back of the queue because we're not paying, as far as I know, we're not paying loan fees. Or very little, we're struggling with wages and look at the size of the squad now, it's bloated and there's no money. So people can say, I can sit here and say these signings are rubbish, but to be honest, they might be the best that this Lee Bromby and Dave Baldwin could have done because there's very little money to spend. So it's not really just on two people. It's more about the circumstances that the club find themselves in. And Dean Hoyle's in the process of selling the club. He doesn't want to put any more money in. That's the circumstance. There's no point bleating on about it. It's just where we are. But the one thing really we have is that you brought 2 strikers in on half decent money there. You could have got 1 striker for that, for combined wages where, he's more likely to achieve what you want. But who knows? He has to wag on getting 10 goals from now to the end of the season.
Wag on. Tom, what do you think?
I was saying, Matt, that's your hour up there. That's your hour of Huddersfield Town therapy done. That'll be £300, mate. I
need a couch, don't I?
Literally, Matt's touched on absolutely everything spot on there. I don't disagree with any of that. This keeper from Forest just blows my mind. It's like, that is mad. And if you Vaslik is injured or injury prone or whatever, then I guess maybe. But even if Fotheringham's saying he's coming out and saying he's third choice, is mad. What's the point in that? Crazy.
The only conclusion you can draw is that Vaslik's potentially going to get injured because he's failed 2 medicals this January window.
Yeah.
So if he does, then if he gets injured and Jordan Smith comes in and plays well, everyone will say what a genius decision that was to actually have a contingency plan for him. If Vaslik gets injured and Jordan Smith plays like he did on those Twitter highlights, then I think it'll be a completely different story. Well,
that's
to be fair, that's pre-lockdown Jordan Smith. Post lockdown might be a completely different man.
Some of those though, Brady, even with on the club's Twitter, it was like the first instance of like this is the goalkeeper was him coming out and flapping for a ball and just about punching it away and struggling to get up in a bunch of players. And I thought, you're giving him a bit of a bad time there, surely. But yeah, it said a lot, didn't it, that all those highlights were in empty stadiums. That's how long it is since he's being
If
played.
it's third choice, if it's for third choice, you should have just given Phil Senior a ring, shouldn't you? And said, Phil.
Yeah, exactly.
It just seems silly for the loan spot. Like, we could have just got a free agent keeper. Like, I think that is a position where if you need first choice. I mean, I joke with you guys on the chat, but I'm surprised we didn't get Lee Camp. I'm surprised he's still knocking about.
And I will stress that Slick is superb if he's fit. Honestly, it's a superb signing if he's fit. So credit where credit's due.
But I mean, Kieran Westwood knocking about still free agent. I know he's like 50 or something now, but even if he's just sitting on the third choice keeper bench, it's experience in it and stuff. And it's just, anyway, sorry, go on, Brady. What's next?
I think Matt's touched on it there. Like, initially, I think I'd said on previous pods, like, because they downplayed it so much, the fact that we'd actually brought in, I mean, what if we brought in 7 players? I think, like, I thought we weren't going to bring in anyone. So the fact that we managed to bring players in, and you've talked about it, Matt, like, it's not a brilliant window. But, from the sounds of it, we've got nothing to work with. And we're at the back of the queue because we're doing poorly in the league. It's just sad. It's just sad. Like, I mean, we're on episode 99. Episode 75 was our Nottingham Forest player final preview. It's just so I just can't believe it. But yeah, anyway, we'll read out some of the comments from the listeners for the tweet we put out earlier about what they make of the window. Lee Morris, being tongue-in-cheek, I think here. That's not like Lee. Best transfer window ever. That's what we normally say, isn't it?
I think he means it.
Yeah. Kasumu says we need a left back and a centre mid. We've signed 2 strikers and 2 wingers. One who's injured, overloaded at right back, forcing us to end the loan of the one in form loanee we had all season. Vlakic is a great replacement for Nichols, however. Also showed Russell and loaned out. So the Thomas, not a good window. James Allywood says, have they improved the quality of the team massively? Keeper apart, I'm not so sure. Christopher says, apart from Humbo, who's young, absolutely bloody superb window, is what I'd be saying if it happened 3 or 4 years ago.
It's right, isn't it? It's a great window for 2017, yeah.
Yeah. Vlakic is a coup, but doesn't paper over the fact it's been an awful window overall. Joe Kelly, Huddersfield Town retirement home. Jonathan Dyson, ironically, probably a goalkeeper upgrade on Nichols. I think if you look at his stats, I mean, he won the Europa League 2 years ago, didn't he? So
yeah, he was one of the best keepers. Ask Cozzy, he said he was one of the best keepers in Spain at Seville.
Yeah, La Liga expert Richard Cosmana.
He is absolutely.
We have a Rolls Royce keeping department. What I will say about the keepers, actually, and I think he gets a lot of love on this podcast, but I really thought, like, of all the statements, because they can be quite wishy-washy, I thought Clem's statements were actually quite good and talked about the need for these players and like why it's crucial.
I'm a big fan of Clem. I think he's great from what I've seen. Really good. I think Town are quite lucky to have him, to be honest. Yeah,
I mean, they were talking about, like, Vlakic was talking about the reputation Clem has, like, in the goalkeepers union. So go on, Clem. Yeah. But I would say that because we all like him.
He's a good guy, isn't he? He's a good, decent guy, is Clem.
Yeah. I think, we listeners have touched on it, but that we needed left back and a creative central midfielder, and it's not good enough. I think
we have recalled Headley, haven't we? But I think to recall him and then not really give him a go. There's time yet, isn't there, to do so? But Mike Fotheringham was quite effusive in his praise for Jaheim Headley, and we've seen Josh Ruffles. I'm not going to go in too hard on Josh Ruffles, but we've seen him struggle this year, haven't we? And if there's a time to pick a young player, it probably isn't now. But Ben Jackson did fine. I think if you throw Jaheim Headley in, he'll probably do okay as well. But there's probably a time and a place. But he may, between now and the end of the season, take that left back slot. You don't know. By the way they were talking, so.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say as well with our form at the moment is it puts so much pressure on the defence when it's such an obvious thing to say, but every mistake gets overanalyzed if you can't score goals, and that is, just speaking from a pure, if I was a defender, that puts so much more pressure on you as a defender because
you're right, because
that one mistake.
Yeah, we put so much pressure on our own defence by by being so defensive and putting 10 men behind the ball and standing on the edge of the box. So there's a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah. Speaking as a man who used to lose regularly by 10 goals plus in five-a-side and was the only defender, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You've picked the wrong vocation there, because you're like 7 foot tall. You should be heading stuff away, not playing five-a-side where there's a head-eye rule.
Yeah, true, yeah. So we'll move on from the transfer window. Basically, I thought we could inject some hope into this, and it would appear not. So does anybody want to add anything before we move on? No. Okay.
I could, but it'd be negative.
Okay.
No. The silence says it all, doesn't it?
I was going to say everybody's really excited to see the back of Mbete, but maybe we should ask who's paying for him still.
Well. But
it's just a question. It's just a question, because apparently there were no break clauses in him or Tino, so we'll see. But not that that's any of our business. The club have placed anyway. So.
Tino's still about Tino.
It's the Kermit the Frog kind of cup of tea moment.
Yeah, Tino's still with us, even though he's out for the season.
Oh, is that
recording? Fotheringham confirmed it in the press conference that he's out for the season.
If he comes back and does what he did at the end of last season, then it'll be amazing, wouldn't it? But, against Coventry and stuff, but fingers crossed.
All I can say is let's all get on the Martin Waghorn train and let's put all our eggs in that basket, and let's just pray and hope. And pray.
This is what this could be. This could be the Martin Waghorn.
Oh yes,
there you go. The conch has been revived. Okay,
I like it. Well, you talk about it, just those recalls very quickly. At this rate, give him a go. Give Josh Koroma a game. We talked about that. Defense. I think Reg is a good defender, but weirdly, I don't think. I think we've probably got our best back three. It's just,
honestly, I need to be positive on this podcast, Brady, because I've been in absolute misery from the first minute. But Mikael Helik's a fantastic player. I think he should have got much tighter on Gustavo Hamer, by the way, at the weekend. But I think he's been an excellent signing overall. I think he's a really, really top player, Mikael Helik. So that's
absolutely. And we'll get a good fee for him when we're in League One.
Yeah, exactly. When the next club that's just about trying to stay up in the Championship signs him as well.
Lads, I suppose the other one that we didn't talk about very quickly before we move on to the QPR game, John Russell went to Barnsley. I know we knew it was going to be coming for a while. Tom's yawning, so I'm guessing he's not that excited about it. But so I'll come to you first then, mate. Yawn at me, will you? Russell, what do you think?
John Russell, disappointed because I thought he was turning into a bit of a semi-solid player last season. But then it's obviously just not worked out. One thing that I'm just getting an inkling from Fotheringham is, does he just bin people off that he maybe doesn't get on with or doesn't get on board with things? I'm making rumours up here, Brady, as usual, but it just feels that way. It's like the rumours about him and Sorba falling out. Sorba's been sent out on loan. We know that he's come out and said that basically he didn't even come out and say John Russell can go look for somewhere, pretty much kind of thing. So I think as a manager, but he isn't a manager, he's a coach. It's not a good trait to have, and maybe that's something that we have lacked this season.
Yeah, look at you, Tom, starting conspiracy theories. The two most big personality players have now left the club. Right, okay, let's talk about the QPR game. So they're 14th in the league heading into this one. They're 12 points ahead of Town, but they are in the bottom three when it comes to the form table, winning just one of their last 10 matches. Tom, it's a home game. It's the first time we've had one since the 1st of January. Do you think that's going to have a positive impact in the team? Because, and I'm doing a Matt where I get in my stat before I throw to you, because I like it, Matt. 4 wins in the last 10 home games for Town. So do you think it's going to be a positive?
Town will win this game 1-0. That's all I'm saying. There we go. Boom. I think it will, Brady. Might not be a pretty performance, but QPR are pretty bad at the moment. And I don't know. For me, this is the game where if we have an inkling of staying up, we need to.
Is this the other day? Is this the another day we're talking about?
This is the game. If we stay up, this is the one that tells me whether we have a chance of staying up or not.
Wow. You hear that, players? That's Tom throwing the gauntlet down for you. Matt, do you see us winning this one? You were talking before we recorded, other games not so great. Like Hull, we were ahead, didn't work out. Like, can you see Town winning this one?
I think form's probably irrelevant at this point because we're pretty bad. But Hull, like I say, hadn't won at home since October. Hadn't had great home form. Absolutely battered, I think, second half. Coventry hadn't won in 6. Didn't even need to break sweat or get out of second gear to beat us. So I don't think form's that relevant really. Although Hull, to be fair, had a bad home record, but away from home they were decent. So and we defended fairly well for the most part. But I agree with Tom. Actually, I think we can win this game. It's very similar to the Watford game for me. I thought we could beat Watford, and I got a bit of a rude awakening there. So I hope I'm not in for another one. But I genuinely think we tend to do quite well against QPR. I've just jinxed it, so touch wood. But we tend to do all right against QPR. We absolutely mugged them at their place, didn't we? With two Josh Ruffels wonder goals. But I've never seen a more one-sided battering in my life, and a team coming away and winning that than what we got down there. And I'd take the same again. Maybe we need Josh Ruffels just to let fly from 40 yards in this one. But yeah, I think we can win the game. They're not on the best form. They've got a new manager since we last played them. It's taking time to get to grips with things there. We have a decent record against QPR, but we're not entirely brilliant ourselves. But we're usually useless in January, aren't we? And thankfully, the month's ended, so maybe we've got a little bit of love in February coming up to Valentine's Day. So fingers crossed. I've done a Brady there, haven't I? A bit of a Partridge Brady special.
Aha! Yes, you did. Yeah. No, I think, to be honest, I think we could win this one. I'm not going to, the team's playing poor, but we have done a bit better at home, and we have had quite a few away games on the trot. My concern is the atmosphere, because that Watford game and some of the home games I've been to recently, we tend to start quite well, start quite brightly, like maybe not create loads, but like we look positive, and then I feel like teams deal with it and they come back into it, and it's an obvious, but I think the only way we're going to win this game is if we score first. I just can't really see us coming back into it, but I do think we could do that. But yeah, to be honest, not that I need to do a rallying call to the fans, but like I'm going on Saturday. I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to cheer them on, because I think, like, I hope it'll make a difference. Because yeah, if QPR score first, I just can't see us winning at all. So yeah, that's nice and positive. But they do have a lot of good players, QPR, even though we do have a good record against them. I am going to go first for this because Tom's probably picked it, or Tom will reel off the entire first team. And I know Tom likes this player, Ilias Chair. He's got 10 goals plus assists. He is the definition, as Harry Redknapp would say, a terrific little player. Being 5'5", he's just Tom. Do you remember when we were in the playoff push and we were playing QPR and we were like, oh, if we went up, I'd get him. Yeah.
I'm surprised
that's gonna happen.
He's still there. I am surprised he's still there. To be fair, I thought someone might have took a little punt on him in the summer in the Prem. Yeah, I mean, he was top of my list as well, Brady, to be fair. Do you want to speak a bit more about him there? Have you got any more stats on him? His favourite hobby?
No. His favourite... I don't know what his favourite hobby is. I mean, he did get called up to the Moroccan team, didn't he, as well? Who finished fourth at the World Cup. So, yeah, good player. Didn't play much, though. That's all I have about Ilias Chair. Tom, who did you pick?
I've gone with Sam Field, defensive midfielder. Sam, defensive midfielder, is his full name. Middle name, defensive mid. Just because he's played a lot of games for them. this year. He's been quite important, I think, to him. So that's who I've gone with, mate. 2 goals and 2 assists as well from defensive midfield and about 30 odd games. So yeah, he's only 24 as well. So yeah, good age.
Feels a bit soccer at him, that.
Yeah,
Back
it
in the
did,
old
didn't
days.
it?
Great age. Bit dodgy that, looking back on that now.
Little
Matt, who's
bit.
your key player?
They've got quite a team of players I quite like. Thankfully, some of them are out injured out there. Lyndon Dykes, well, not thankfully, in case of Lyndon Dykes, I think he's got pneumonia. Obviously, don't wish that on anyone. Lyndon Dykes is out. I think Chris Willock's probably still injured. Decent player. Elias Chair, I think, is a fabulous player at this level. But I'm probably going to say Jamal Lowe is the exact type of striker that I wanted us to bring in the window. And you know, he's got pace, he's quick, he's got a goal and assist in 3 games already. So I think Jamal Lowe will be a bit of a pest for us. But hopefully my mate, well, not my mate, but my current favourite town player, Mikael Helik, will gobble him up and send him back to London with nothing.
Yeah, have him on a real low, no, they're one of those teams where I'm surprised they've not been in the playoffs. I know they fell away quite badly last year.
Yeah, like Rob Dickey's class as well. Yeah, Rob Dickey's decent. Done.
Yeah.
You know, they've got Sonny Dieng's not a bad keeper.
They've done the last few seasons, haven't they, though, I think.
Kind of flirted a bit and then fallen off, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope they have one of their falling off days.
Yeah. Well, this year they did it earlier than expected, haven't they, so far? So hopefully they don't have a rocket up their arse this next few months, and we get a shit QPR on Saturday.
Well, Tom, do you think we'll get a QPR Saturday? Shit QPR on Saturday? You'll probably know because you spoke to a QPR fan, didn't you? Tell us about the view from the other side heading into this one.
Yeah, I went to meet up with Alex from Our Generation and chat all things QPR.
Hi, so I'm Alex Bullimore from Our Generation on Air podcast. If you want to, you can find us on all good podcast providers, Spotify, podcasts and such. Basically, QPR this season. Well, since the game against you guys, so much has changed. We've got a new manager now. Beale obviously departed to go up and manage Glasgow Rangers, and that has left the squad, the club, and the whole atmosphere around the season in a very precarious state. We've barely won a game since he's left, and in fact, our form was starting to dip in the last sort of 5 games that he was managing. But since Critchley has come in, we've only won 1 game. It's like 1 in 14, I believe, and that was his first game against Preston away. So much promise in that game from so many individuals, and we did that without one of our best players in Elias Chair, who was playing in the World Cup at that time. But since then, it's been, I guess, largely more negative than positive. There's been a small amount of positive performances. Example being Sheffield United, and then majority of the game against Swansea as well. Unfortunately, those were tempered with one last-minute equalisers for the opposition, and then also we've had really pathetic performances. Luton at home losing 3-0, Fleetwood away in the Cup, and then most recently Hull away. And the atmosphere towards the club is incredibly negative at the moment. Now, obviously, 3 wins, a lot of those feelings get pushed under the carpet and people forget about that. But for the time being, we're seeing a lot of questions being asked. How good are the players really? The performance of the director of football, Les Ferdinand, the CEO as well, for failing to fill the stadium. It's not been an enjoyable couple of weeks to be a QPR fan. So this would be a brilliant time to play us. So, that's lucky for you guys, I would say. With regards to a player who is in form, you would have to be Sherlock Holmes to find one of them at the moment. No one is in a good vein of form. I guess the only one you could possibly say is Jamal Lowe. He scored an assist in his first 2 games, but then, he was part of the team that lost 3-0 up at Hull. He was playing, I believe, as a striker in that game, not necessarily the best position for him. He was playing in that position because Lyndon Dykes has recently been admitted to hospital, unfortunately. So there's, we're unsure on the time frame of his return to full fitness. Lowe was our only signing this January transfer window. Probably the best that we were going to do. He is a very good player, and you can see that in the good moments of the Swansea game and the game against Reading. Unfortunately, is he going to sort of turn this season around? I don't know. Early signs is that there's not enough from the opposition. Not opposition. From the rest of the team to actually kind of push us forward. So we're looking at a mid-table finish, considering that we started the season so brightly and we know that these players are actually quite good. To see us floundering a little bit and falling off is very disappointing, and it looks like that we will be sticking around in the Championship for another season. I know some fans are getting more and more worried now about the prospect of relegation, and to be fair, when you've only won 1 game in 14, it is, I wouldn't say for this season, a justified worry, but certainly when you're looking forward that a lot of these players are going to be at the club for next season, you do tend to worry, because we had a complete capitulation at the back end of last season when we were genuinely in a very good position to get playoffs, and this year it came a lot earlier, admittedly with a big grenade chucked in by the departure of the manager. Regardless, you've got these players that are soft, and they've capitulated again. And if Neil Critchley can turn it around, the consensus is that he is an excellent manager, because you would have to be an excellent manager to turn this group of players into something more positive. So going into Saturday, I'm not positive at all. I thought we were going to win against Swansea, and we nearly got it over the line. And if we did win there, then this could be an entirely different QPR. But we keep on doing these things where we have these really pathetic performances, and then the next game we go and stop the rot. That happened with Reading post Fleetwood. That happened with Sheffield United post Luton. So we may be looking at another one of those. A resilient performance, nothing too special, but something that will at least, make us QPR fans go, oh, well, they've got a little bit of fight in them. But I'm getting really frustrated with that. We can't keep going on with the sort of, we're really rubbish one game and then let's get, eke out a 1-1 draw in the other game because just to show a little bit of passion or something like that. No. This needs to change. The whole team need to back their ideas up. Unfortunately for us, even, I can't see us winning the game. At best, we'll draw it. But I can see us going away again and losing. So, I don't know if that would sort of surprise you or anything. I think I don't really watch too much of other Championship teams, but just looking at the table, it's going to be a game that on paper some QPR fans would probably expect to win. But, with the way we're going at the moment, I don't see where that win comes from. So I'm going to go for another 1-1 draw, and that's going to be me being incredibly positive. So good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously, not too much luck for this Saturday. But yeah.
There we go. Cheers, Alex, for coming on again. I'm sure you enjoy your trip up to Huddersfield.
Okay, cool. So we've heard from Alex. Let us take a break, and we're getting a bit more positive as this podcast goes on. So if we have a break, we'll be even more positive after that. Okay, it's mailbag time. One of my favourite parts of the pod. Here we go.
You've got mail.
First question from Lord of the Dance, aka my name on a Saturday night. He says, has the club become a poison chalice for any new owner or manager? Also, can someone lend me £1 You probably saw that Dean Hoyle has put the club up for sale for £1 with what, £43 million worth of debt. But
I know that's nonsense, isn't it? Though it's like 43 million in a quid or something. Yeah, it's a bit more than a quid.
It reminded me of. Do you remember when Arsenal bid for Luis Suarez and it was 40 million?
Oh yeah,
£1?
I did. Yeah, brilliant that
one. Anyway, poison chalice. Tom, do you think it's a poison chalice for any manager or owner?
I don't think so. But we need an owner that wants to actually be here and run the club. Basically, it is at the moment. But until you get someone who actually wants to run it as a football club and wants to do something with it and make money from it, is probably what anyone who's going to buy it is going to do, unless it's a fan again. I don't know. Yes, no. There's two answers in there, Brady. Sorry. Throw it over to Matt.
It's a misery, Matt. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, we've seen Wrexham do well with actors. Maybe I'm surprised no one's tried to rope Patrick Stewart into buying it.
Mate, I've already seen someone tweeting him saying,
"Oh, really?"
That'd be interesting.
Matt, do you think it's poison chalice at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a club that's not being run very well, if I'm honest. I feel like there are different powers behind the scenes, colliding and splintering off into direction. I don't think it's got good leadership at the minute. The wage bill's low. The training grounds, I know it gets mocked, doesn't it? But it's decent for this level. So they've got a good training ground. The stadium ownership should be sorted very soon. There's the debt's only to one person who's not going to call it in and take us into administration, despite the rumours. So I don't think it's actually a bad club to buy, because you've got a man in Dean Hoyle who's taking a lot of flack at the minute. Some deserved, some maybe not. But he's not going to see Huddersfield Town go bust. So you've got a reasonable human being there where you can repayment method with him, who's not going to take interest from it. So that's a positive. The bank loan is pretty much paid off if you look at the accounts properly. I think they've used the previous years in that story. So in terms of debt, it's not that bad. It's all to one person who's not, going to kick down your door if you make it a day late, etc. You can speak to him and he'll be, I'm sure he'll be reasonable. Playing wise, the wage bill, like I say, it's not huge. If you want to extend that, it's very extendable at this level if you wanted to put the money in. So no, I don't think it is. I think it just needs a different kind of leadership. I think it just needs fresh ideas, and it needs somebody at the top with a real drive to push it on. Because I think the main issue at the minute is the club feels rudderless. I don't think it's a poison chalice. I just think it's a ship, isn't it? Just drifting in the ocean in all the fog and gloom with no one steering it, or three people fighting over the wheel, if you like. And no, I think a new ownership would be great for the club. Hopefully, it comes in sooner rather than later, before things get, people think things are toxic now. I've seen it be much worse than this. So, in it comes, Dean goes, and hopefully it's a clean break this time. And if it is, I'm sure we can all look back on his tenure with more fondness, really. You look at sort of 2008 to 2019. That's some of the best times you'll ever have being a Huddersfield Town fan, and he was at the head of it. And that's what I want to remember, rather than how he sold the club and exited. So the sooner it goes, the sooner we can do that. The sooner fresh ideas can drive it forward. And if we're still in the Championship, which is a big if at the minute, I think there's a club there that somebody could really take on and push forward. I believe in Huddersfield Town Football Club, and I think I think once someone comes in, they'll go, actually, do you know what? This is a bloody good football club, this. And it just needs someone to come and have a look.
Well said. I mean, I know we're biased, but I think you're spot on.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. But, you look at other clubs, like purely from a business perspective, and like you say, our wage bill's one of the lowest, and we've proven that we can do miracles and get up at the end of the table despite the financial disparity with some of the other clubs. And I think it is, I know there is existing debt, but it's not at the same level as some of the other Championship clubs. And again, we've talked about it a lot. It's got potential. It's got potential, this club. And it's just the end of the cycle.
Cough, West, cough.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just, it's just at an end of the cycle. Like, we all know Dean stepped away. We know he doesn't want to be here. We know he did step in because he had to. I'm not sure he necessarily would have done unless his hand was forced. I mean, I don't know, but it's the end.
Yeah, it was forced. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that.
Absolutely, and it's just, you're right. We need. I think this is the issue with the club, and this is why it feels bad, because no one really knows what's going on. And if you're an investor, I mean, I'm not, I don't have millions of pounds to buy Huddersfield Town, but I'm waiting to see what division they're in before I invest until it's a bit more steady. And you're right. I think that's all that it needs. It just needs someone, whether that's a consortium, whoever takes over. It just needs new, fresh ideas. And in a lot of ways, it feels it's the ownership equivalent of when we sacked Powell and Wagner came in. We just need something to get behind, like a bit of a revolution,
If someone comes in with big ideas and backs it up, the main thing is don't talk. Huddersfield Town fans have seen enough talk, haven't they? I was going to start swearing again. Rant. But if someone comes in, is honest, talks, and then backs it up quickly, then I'm sure Huddersfield fans will really get behind it. And providing they don't stick the season ticket card prices up to like 600 quid, which could happen, then I think there'll be a decent response. I think people would give, someone a good go, because I think at the end of the day, Huddersfield Town fans are more than reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apart from us.
God, can you imagine spending money on a player again? I'd be so excited.
A striker. Imagine buying a striker. Well, our first team striker, I should say, because Tyrese, obviously.
True. Imagine buying a first team striker that's not over 30 as well. Anyway, Guy Bradley, he asks, Bromby gets a lot of stick, but surely getting Vlakic is a bit of a coup. I know we talked a lot about Bromby, but do you think, because again, I've seen the Bromby out stuff, do you think it's fair stick, or do you think it's unnecessary? Tom, I'll come to you because you look really happy to answer that question. We're getting all the tough questions today.
I think specifically on that question, Matt's kind of touched on it. Haven't we almost forced Olympiakos' hand in the fact that they owe us some sort of deal because of Pippa? We needed a goalkeeper. This guy's there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a on paper it sounds amazing. He's also had a pretty bad couple of years with injury, so maybe it's just one of those that has fallen into place nicely. Do you think that was like the first half of the question? Then was the second half of the question is, does Bromby get too much stick? Was that it, Brady?
That was the first part of the question, but you answered the second part first. First part was, does Bromby get a lot of stick?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's been a shit show. I'm not like, there we go. It's been a shit show this year it's been a shit show, hasn't it? Last year was great. But was last year a fine example of Bromby doing, do you know what I mean? Bromby did do a good job last year, technically. He brought in players. Were they players that Carlos wanted or weren't they? But he brought in players that did a job, worked really well, got us into the playoffs. We were one of the best teams in the league. So, yeah, maybe. Matt, go on.
Vatslik, if fit, brilliant. That's all you need to say. We've said that a couple of times. Lee Bromby. It is difficult for me, this, because I went to school with Lee, and I know, well, and I've met his mum and dad before. I've known his brother. Well, I don't know his brother, cause he's mates with his brother. But I've known Lee for ages. I don't speak to him anymore. I did when I scouted for the academies, but touch base again with him. But so it's not like we're best mates or anything, or speak. But I do feel slightly biased towards him, even though he's a raging chest wanker. So it's difficult to sort of be too critical in some ways, but I'll do my best to be fair. I think if you look at Lee, I think when he first came to the job, the role itself, the wage bill of Huddersfield Town's around 25 million quid, 26 million quid. Year on year, he's had that massively slashed. He's had transfer funds massively slashed So the wage bill, I was told the wage bill at one point in the summer was, they were looking at running with an £8 or £9 million wage bill until they went out and got Hellick and Kane Kessler-Hayden, and that would have been the lowest in the league, clearly, comfortably. Nobody's going to do a good job with that level. I'll be honest. And there's so much more to his role than just signing players and picking a manager. There's so much more. There's the analysis, there's the medical, there's the academy stuff. And you could argue that the analysis, the academy kids coming through and playing in the first team, the medical stuff, since Carlos since he kept injuring everybody's hamstring, how they've got a grip on that. And it's probably never been better in some areas. But the problem with the sporting director is that you always look at the transfers and everybody's judged based on that. And you look at, I can't remember who signed Rolando Aarons, but anybody who signed him should be sacked immediately. But you look at like Conor Mahoney, that's not, it's a punt, but it's not a very good one. And when your wage bill is so low, you have to be, it's like they say, you have to be creative and you have to be clever. And some of the signings really haven't been clever, and the managerial appointments haven't really either up to press. And so people will rightfully judge him on the transfers that have come in, and they'll point the finger and say, that's crap, and he's shit, off you go. And I understand that. But I think when you combine it with what he's working with and what he's had to work with, I think he's in a almost not quite a no-win situation, because we got to the playoff final last year, but he's in a position whereby he can make absolutely no errors on anything. Otherwise, Huddersfield Town drop down the league. And he's probably done as well in some areas as he possibly could. When you look at Hellick, Redoni, I think, has got a lot of potential. And I know of players that Lee wanted, not via Lee, but via other mediums. I know of players that Huddersfield Town wanted in the summer that would have been fantastic signings, but it was vetoed by the owner because it cost, or vetoed by the board because it would have cost too much money. And they didn't want, obviously, we didn't have that much to spend. And I'm not talking tens of millions here. I'm talking like 1.5, for a player and stuff like that. So I know what could have been if you'd have let him have a proper go at it. And so it's almost a shame, but the backup plans are not very good. And essentially, he will live and die by Mark Fotheringham's appointment and how well that does. And at the minute, I don't think Mark Fotheringham's particularly great, if I'm honest. I can't listen to him pre or post match. I absolutely love putting the YouTube comments on and seeing what it comes up at the bottom. There's some absolute belters if you turn the sound off and just watch the comments at the bottom. It's amazing. But Mark Fotheringham for me was not the man. I thought we needed experience. At the time, I thought he screamed experience. It was obvious, and I don't think he's seen the level of trouble that we were in at that point. And I think he's made a mistake with Mark Fotheringham. If Mark Fotheringham now keeps us safe, brilliant. Well done, Lee. Well done, Fothers. Matt, shut the hell up, But I think, as it stands at this minute, I think he's made a mistake with Mark Fotheringham, and people aren't going to let that go, and he should be judged on it. And if it doesn't go well, then I'm afraid people will rightfully gun for him. But the Bromby out stuff, I think I get it in some respects, but I don't think people always look at the entire picture of what a sporting director or director of football does, and they just look at transfers and manager. The other side of the stuff he's done is really good. The administration, the organisation, all the different departments. But transfers and manager has been severely handicapped by lack of money, hasn't it, for the last 2 seasons? He did very well one summer. Since then, it's been very hard to replicate. And he will probably pay for it, I would imagine, towards the end of the season. But I think the understanding should be really that he's not really had a great chance of success either. So there you go. I'm a little bit unsure.
Yeah. I think initially, I think I said it on the podcast when they appointed it, but if this goes wrong, this is on Bromby really for Fotheringham,
and that's fair.
It is fair, and you make a really good point about the money and transfers, and I understand, like you say, talking about Bromby out, get rid of him, but if your budget's nothing,
who's going to do better?
we could get the best football director in the world. Like they would still struggle. And to be honest, I remember
Freddie Bobic, the best sporting director in the world, has been sacked. So Mike Fotheringham, I'm sure, will be on the phone. Amazing how the best get sacked. But there you
go. But I remember last summer, when Carlos was here, when we signed, and we all said it. Tom Lees, that's an awful sign. Lee Nichols, this guy from MK Dons who's not starting for them. Like, so I'm willing to be proved wrong. And
made us look idiots, didn't they? Made us look like the idiots that we are, didn't they? Yeah,
absolutely. And my girlfriend says this to me all the time. Like, I remember when
best commentator ever, by the way.
Absolutely, and not gone to head at all about it. But I remember when we lost 5-1 to Fulham in that Carlos's second season, last season, I thought he should go, and look how wrong I was, and I'm willing to admit that. I think it's really difficult with Bromby, and that kind of taps back into the you look at the players, and ultimately that's what you're going to judge. You're going to judge the transfers. You're going to judge the people. It was a mistake to appoint Danny Schofield. I know Carlos gave us 2 weeks and shafted us, but that was a mistake. And then I think the thing that is the worst about this is, they should have got someone experienced. And I know Fotheringham's not great. I mean, he's got 5 wins, in 17 games. But
from the start of the season wouldn't have been as bad, would it? But it needed a bit more. But
yeah,
I think if Fotheringham goes, Lee probably has to follow. Sadly, or not sadly, as some fans will say. I'll correct me. But I think it's partly a shame, but. And the football's so dire as well, and your pattern of how you play is implemented really by the sporting director. They bring someone in to play to a certain pattern, and I can't cope with this 11 men behind the ball play for a set piece stuff at the minute. It's driving me mad. But if Matt Fotheringham ultimately fails, then Lee Bromby fails, and I think people will call for his head if he does, and it'll be hard to stick up for him.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. Like, it's not.
I want to because I know him, but it's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if we're going to go down, let's at least go down swinging. I think that's the problem. Right. Okay. We've talked a lot about the grim stuff. I'm going to finish this before we come onto the team, because remember, we are doing a QPR preview. Jay Bentley, he says, you've just ordered a full English. You have to get rid of one item and replace it with another item of food. What swap deal are you doing? Right, okay, so reminder, I'm looking at a picture. I've just Googled full English because, people vary. But you've got sausages, you've got fried eggs, bacon, baked beans, black pudding, grilled tomatoes, and mushroom in the one that I've got. Anything you don't like on that, and anything you swapped it with, Tom? This is your time to shine. I feel like this is a question right for you.
I can keep it as is, or I can swap. Did you have baked beans on that list?
You have to swap. Jay asks. You have to get rid of one. Baked beans, yeah.
They're already on there.
They're already on
there. Did you have? Oh, but that sounds perfect for me. That does actually. Then I'd probably take out. I wouldn't want to, but I'd take out the grilled tomatoes and just have a few slices of toast.
Okay. Fair, Matt.
Honestly, when I see a picture of full English and it's got those shit tinned tomatoes on, I just think throw it in the bin. Absolutely rancid. Get rid of those shit house tomatoes and replace them with some hash browns. That's what I say.
Nice.
I don't like hash browns.
You're a disgrace.
Matt, the other week we got asked how we have our tea, and none of us said we have tea. So I think that's a sin. We're a Yorkshire club, and none of us like.
Do you mean like cups of tea or dinner tea?
Yeah, cups of tea.
Cups of tea. Okay.
I just have black.
Horrendous. I'm with you. Get rid of grilled tomatoes. Controversial. I prefer scrambled eggs to fried eggs, personally.
Do you know what? Scrambled eggs, if they're done on like a pan, a griddle pan, they're actually decent. But if you stick them in the microwave, then you stick them on the plate, and then they get that rubbish sort of like run off, don't they?
In the microwave.
So you got it. As long as the pan fried, I'm all right with that, Brady.
Yeah. I'd probably swap grilled tomatoes. I don't. I'm a bit funny about tomatoes. I do like tomatoes, but again, not that this is the question. Hate tomatoes in like a meal deal sandwich. Just grim.
Yeah, shite out there.
Rubbish. Too watery. There you go,
Cherry
Jay.
tomatoes, though.
Cherry tomatoes, yeah. Fine tomatoes. I'm going to call this pod the tomato pod. Okay, right.
99 red tomatoes. That could be your.
Nice.
Could even have the song.
You can hear me typing. So okay, right. It's time for You're the Boss, Matt. I don't think you've not been on for a while. So how would you? You know my question. What's your managerial attire? It's been a while. Have you had any thoughts about what you've
mate, I have to go naked to distract from the performance on the field, I reckon. But, no, I think I love a big coat. You know what I mean? Not quite the Arsene Wenger one. You know, it goes on forever, but you know, like a nice sort of smartly dressed coat. Probably some. I like the Carlos look, to be honest with you. You know, with the but more the skinny sort of jean look. Although someone my age and size probably shouldn't wear the skinny jeans, but you know, so that sort of look, but with a big decent coat, which makes me look like I'm off to the office. So,
nice,
yeah,
nice. I've had just very quickly. I've had thoughts about mine, and I quite liked what Steven Gerrard had at Villa, like shirt, tie, but jumper, and then smart trousers.
Do you not find like shirt and ties like quite uncomfortable? So, and when you're in a situation where you're moving around, are quite sort of like.
Yeah, but you can loosen it. And what's great about that is you don't need to iron the shirt if you're just chucking the jumper on. You just do the collar.
Maybe you could go like Chris Powell, you know, smart at home, and then you tracksuit away. I quite like that idea, actually. Probably Chris Powell's best idea.
Tom? You making excuses for not ironing. Wear a jumper off of it. What's out of order that? What's the point if you're like, I don't need to? Well, then just wear a tracksuit.
All right. Sorry, I didn't realise you felt so strongly about this. No, the peep out of you in like 10 minutes, and this is so you come back.
Yeah, well, I've just been pented up anger about town, and I've taken it out on you, being like, I don't want to iron my shirt, so I'll put a jumper over the top of it.
What if you want to be smart, but like you can't be bothered? A tracksuit if you can't be bothered. What if you want to be smart? Anyway,
Brady,
this is fictional.
If you can't be bothered, you can't be smart.
Okay.
I quite like that saying. That's going to be in Fotherham's next press conference.
Yeah. We'll look out for it. I mean, I'm not going to be town manager, Tom, so don't worry about it. I mean, but who knows at this rate? It's pretty shambles.
Well,
you know.
How's your
Okay. Anyway, so let's talk about the lineups. So,
the best commentator in the world's just walked in.
Appreciate that as well. Okay, so they lined up in a 3-4-2-1. God, how long have we going on here? Bilikapic, Lees, Hellick, Pearson was the 4, and then you back 3 and your keeper. Then you had Loughton, Hogg, High, and Ruffles. Then Radoni, Holmes, and Big Jordan Rhodes. Matt, what would you change? So let's assume we've not had the team news yet, but let's assume our new keepers are fit. Are you changing the formation? Are you changing players?
I'm a bit unsure, really. All I know is that I would completely change what Mark Fotherham's been doing. There's two ways to go about it. Either a 3-4-3, which is similar to what he's been doing, but he has to play a more attacking wing back in Ben Jackson on the left ahead of Ruffles, or he goes 4-3-3 and has Hogg as a deep lying midfielder that can drop into the 5 to make up the 5 when we're in defence, which Carlos did really well last season. I'm not sure which I prefer. I think if I go 4-3-3, I will bring Kamara back in regardless. I think Scott High's okay. He's a plug and play footballer, isn't he? He passes, he moves, he works hard, physically struggles, but he's and without being unkind to Scott, Etienne Kamara's head and shoulders above him figuratively and, in literally. So Kamara comes back in for me. I'm not sure any of the strikers particularly take Rhodes' striking role away, even though Jordan's not exactly on fire at the minute. I would start Hungbo, I think, out wide. Just for the pace, you'd have Ben Jackson on the left, you'd have Hungbo on the right, and at least both sides can stretch the opposition and maybe get behind. I think The interesting bit is where you go. If you play 4-3-3, who else do you play in midfield? You'd probably have to play Kamara and Radoni as a central midfielder. Or if you go for 4-3-3, Radoni plays wide left. So it'd be probably the same personnel, whatever. Maybe it could be interchangeable. The only issue really is whether you pick Marty Pearson or not. But if we do go a back three, I would have Marty Pearson on the right because he looks far more uncomfortable on the left to me at the minute. It's the way he comes across to tackle. He comes across with his right foot. And when you turn like that, it just gives that split second for a winger to get away. And he gave 1 or 2 fouls away against Hull and Coventry, whereby he got the wrong side. And Tom Lees is quite comfortable. Well, more comfortable than Pearson on the left. So I'll probably swap those around if we do. But for me, 3-4-3 or 4-3-3, just make sure you pick either Jackson or Hungbo so we can actually get up the field.
Yeah, I've gone 4-2-3-1. I mean, I don't think he's going to play that, but I'd have new lad in net. I'd have a back four of Loughton, Lees, Hellick. I would drop Pearson just to get Jackson. And I think you're right, Matt. I think Loughton would look a lot better in a 4. I'm going Hogg and Kamara as my 2. And then I was trying to think who would be on number 10 because I actually think Radoni's looked all right.
Radoni, maybe.
Yeah, I was debating
Dwayne.
that. I've put Dwayne, so I've got Hongbo, Holmes, and Radoni as the 3. And then I've got Rhodes because I agree with you. I think Rhodes is, he can score. He just needs to have chances to score. But yeah, again, if it's not working, it's all about the bench. Like we've signed these players, play them. It's not. I saw a comment where Fotheringham was saying, letting people go out because we've got players in good form. I would disagree with that. So, give them a chance. I think it's a slate. So let them go, and the fans will get behind them because they're new. So that's what I'd do. Tom, what would you do?
I don't know what I'd do, but I mean he's going to play a 3-4-2-1, isn't it? I feel like that's what he likes to play. And those last couple of home games as he played that against Luton and Rotherham. It's just whether he's going to get him. I'd like to see Hungbo probably start. I thought if anyone in that Coventry game kind of looked semi up for it and decent going forward, he did. And then you've mentioned Jackson. Yeah, I think Jackson's a good shout because I mean, if you're going to have that 3 at the back, you need at least one of those wing backs to be decent going forward, so that they can drop back into a back 4 if they needed pretty easily. But you've still got actually someone who's going to get up and down. And at the moment, I just don't think you've got that. Ruffles can run, but he's just offer anything up there, unfortunately. So I think Jackson does. So pop him in. In the middle's interesting because I do like Kasumu, and it's that's a pickle for me. So don't press me on that one. But yeah, a mixture of what you guys have said.
I think we're all a bit near. So let's end before we finish and move on to another fun section. What's your score prediction for this one, chaps? Tommy, you already said 1-0, didn't you?
I've done it. 1-0. 1-0. And let's have it. Yeah, Radoni's going to score 1-0.
Playing out the classics. Do you know what? That was my answer. I can't see Town scoring 2 goals. So I think 1-0 win. And I'm also going Radoni. Matt, what's your prediction?
1-0, 1-1. That sort of thing. I can't see us getting more than 2. It'll probably be Martin Waggo now. I've said all that since before, or something like that. So, it's going to be Martin Waggo to shut me up in it, and then he's going to run over and shush me, having listened to this podcast, obviously, I reckon.
If he does that.
I hope he does. I'd love it.
Yeah, he's immediately my favourite player.
Oh, he'd be my favourite player as well if he gave me some stick for that. It'd be amazing.
Okay, cool. Right, okay. Well, let's cheer ourselves up and finish this podcast. It's time for Quaner's question.
A few things change, but also a lot of things are still the same.
Quaner's question of the week this week is: who is your first Huddersfield Town hero and why? I'm going to read out the listeners' comments, and then I'll come on to you. Ricky normally says Paulo Alba had that something that no other player had in that era. Also scored good goals. Stephen says, first hero, question mark. Mine has to be Derek Stokes, the first goal I saw at Leeds Road in 1961 when Huddersfield Town beat FA Cup holders Wolves in the FA Cup third round replay. Over 46,000 at that match.
Some player that, by the way.
Some player that. I was not born for another 33 years, so I possibly can't comment. Hogwash says, it's got to be Mark Lillis, top scorer when I got my first season ticket and got me and him on a T-shirt for Terrier Trek 1984. Oh, I bet that was a class T-shirt. Steve Cole says Mark Lewis as well. Couldn't understand why he wasn't picked for England. I was 6 at the time and also didn't realise we're in Division 4. Love that. And Joe says Rhodes because he's the GOAT. We got a lot for Marcus Stewart. So I think that probably tells you the age of our listeners, but also what a class player. But yeah, and that reminded me of the players in Division 4. I've talked about this before, but do you remember when people were saying Tom Ince for England when he had a decent spell in town?
Christ, yeah. And Hogg for England as well.
And Hogg for England. I would have loved Hogg to get an England cap.
Madness.
If Ricky Lambert could get one. Anyway.
Sure. Or Jack Cork, yeah.
Yeah, Jack. Oh, and Jake Livermore. He got more than one, didn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, Tom, who was your first Huddersfield Town hero?
Phil Senior.
Oh, do you know what? To be fair, Phil is up there. To be fair to him, I've got his shirt, and I've got his shirt signed. Where I don't know. I'm sorry, Phil, but I don't know how you fit into that shirt, mate. It's absolutely. It's still massive when I put it on, and I'm fucking a big lad now. And then I guess John Stead's up there because I got one of his England shirts when he left and started playing for under 21s. But I'm gonna go with I had a few heroes, and they were people who ran the Young Terriers when I started going to town, which was, I think their names are Stuart, Gerald, Sue, and Joan and Steve. Those 5 absolute legends. And I started going to Young Terriers when it was still at the sports centre. And one of the first town players that I ever met was John Forrington, and that was quite a special occasion. And it was John Forrington, and it was when we used to have a lunch at the sports centre, so it was like a really shitty burger and chips. Yeah, and I was so starstruck. It was like, whoa, John Forrington, bloody hell, he's American. So yeah, maybe John Forrington's my first hero, Brady, when I do think about it.
Nice. And good. I like that you shouted out someone who wasn't a player as well. I think that's nice.
They ran it the whole time I went, and I was there. We went for ages because we literally just turned up, played football before going to watch town. It was great, and I think they still sit in the same seats. I don't know if they still run it though. Unfortunately, I don't think it exists anymore. But it was a great little thing that they did. That was.
I'll nip in quick because you touched the player John Stead. I loved him. I still think I'd love him on this pod. Not that he'll listen to this, but he seems like a right laugh as well. So I think even now as an older man, I still think he's a bit of a hero.
As an older man.
Bloody
hell, Brady.
As a withered old man who's aged about 40 years in this season alone. Matt, who was your first Huddersfield Town hero?
Finished 40 years on this podcast, I think. My first hero was Craig Maskell when I was young, because he used to score all the goals. And I just remember we used to get penalties at Leeds Road, and everyone used to run and scale the fence. And I was only sort of littleish. And I just remember everyone being really excited and how everyone used to scale the fence, and he always used to score, and everyone would be going mental. And so Craig Maskell, and then he went to, we sold him to a more progressive club called Swindon Town, which was a bit heartbreaking at the time. So I didn't really have a massive connection with him, but I always liked the goalkeepers because I was a goalkeeper. So Steve Hardwick, Lee Martin, who ended up being my physio at one point, and what a nice guy he is as well. Steve Francis, massive fan of Steve Francis, but I think Phil Starbuck was possibly my first proper Huddersfield Town hero. And I even used to have My head's still like full Starbucks, but I used to have the Phil Starbuck do back in the day with the blow dried to the side thing and stuff. But yeah, he was the first one, and he used to score some proper thunder bastards as well. So yeah, Phil Starbuck.
Fair. I think it's so funny because like your first hero is someone who gets the goals, and then as you get a bit older, you're like, oh, do you know what?
Love a good centre back, yeah.
yeah.
You see where he kicked that out there? Exactly. You see where he got it forward? No messing around, that lad. Straight forward. That's what they want.
No. And we will probably end it there. We will, get rid, as it were. But yeah, it's been a long one, but I think we all needed a bit of a good rant. But, a nice little end there. But before we end, I would like to thank Tom and Matt for joining me. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And I would also like to thank our sponsor, as always, which is Magic Rock Brewing. Don't forget, you can get 10% off all online orders with the code AHTTC10. And, use it or lose it, although it'll always be there. But do use it. And I will also be going to the tap room, as I always do, for home games on Saturday. So do come and say hello if you want a pint or you want to have a go at me for being a negative bastard. Up to you. But we'll end it there. So ta for now, and up the town.
Up the town.
So town player, bring the car back to Huddersfield.